And welcome back to the castle, everybody. This is Nightsaber Z42, and in today's Roll20 tutorial, I'm going to talk about dynamic lighting, and I'm going to show you some examples of how it works in a variety of different settings, like indoor areas and outdoor areas, and how you could really use it to enhance your player's immersion. So, when we talk about dynamic lighting, dynamic lighting is really what your characters can see and what they can't see. It's like lighting in real life. So like if there's a wall in between me and the enemy, I shouldn't be able to see the enemy on the other side of the wall. Now, by default, when you have a map, let me just take one of these maps. When you have a map that you might pull from the web, or you might actually pull from the pull from a PDF or something like that. It's not going to be dynamically lit. I mean, it's just a picture. It's a JPEG or a PNG. It doesn't really have that information set. So by default, your players, when I put in a token, they're going to be able to see everything. Okay. And so dynamic lighting, what that really does, it makes it so I shouldn't be able to see, let's say that I've got a character here. Mr. Kleegru should not be able to see this Vulpin noble on the other side of this building. Okay. For obvious reasons. There's walls going across. So what we do is that, well, there's really 3 steps to creating dynamic lighting. The first step is to actually turn on the dynamic lighting settings, and there's different options for whatever you're doing. The second thing is you're going to draw your sight lines or your walls. The third thing is you're going to activate your tokens. So let's go ahead. I've already put the picture in here. Let's go ahead and look at the settings. So there's 2 things I actually want to show you. The first thing is under page details, there's fog of war. And this is a very basic form of dynamic lighting. So if I click on that and then I enable it, everything is going to be in a shadow. This is the area that your players cannot see. It's in the fog of war. If I want to expose some areas, then I can actually go to this cloud symbol and I can click on reveal. I can click on reveal areas and draw a square. So everything in the lighted area is what my players can see. I can go to polygonal reveal. So let's say I want to highlight this entire set. Now my players can actually see the stack of buildings. And this is a really weird map to kind of show that off because it's like off center. It's in a diagonal shape. But I can also hide any areas. I can hide them back. So if I expose something and the players are gone, I can just go ahead and cover that back up. And I can also reset the fog as well. That's a very basic form of the dynamic lighting system. And it works for a lot of people. It's just something very basic that you can do to enhance immersion. The second way, the actual dynamic lighting system used to be the advanced fog of war and this little dynamic lighting check mark. And Roll20 is actually updating that system to the new dynamic lighting system. And I actually like this a little bit more. With the advanced fog of war and the dynamic lighting system on the page details, you'd actually have to go into the token itself and mess around with some of this emits light and all players see light, has light, and the angle and whatnot. Which, I mean, is kind of the same thing as what the dynamic lighting updated version does, just I think it's more UI friendly. It's easier to understand. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to check that, and then we're going to go to dynamic lighting, updated, and we're going to go ahead and turn that on. So there's two examples that I want to show you today. One is an outdoor area and the other one is an indoor area. If you're outdoors, like in a city or a village, and you want just line of sight, then you're going to want to turn on daylight mode. What this does, it basically adds light to the page so that your players can actually see the map as the token sees it. And anything that is covered by your walls are actually hidden from their sight. So for example, when I start drawing my walls, I will not be able to see this Vulpine Noble on the other side. So we've gone ahead and turned that setting on, right? Yes. And I went ahead and turned on daylight mode. The GM darkness opacity. So this is how much of the area is dark for the GM, not the players. So if I set it all the way to 0%, that means it's going to look exactly as it is without dynamic lighting. It's going to be all lighted. If I go to like 100%, everything is darker. So I like to keep it around between 30 to 40%. That way there's enough darkness that I can tell that it's obscured, but I can also still see the details of the map, especially when I'm drawing my my walls. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've determined the settings. So let's go ahead and draw these walls that I keep talking about. In order to do that, you need to go to your layers and go to the dynamic lighting layer. Note that you can actually change the overlay opacity. So now that I am in the dynamic lighting layer, we can either draw some shapes or we can draw the polygon lines. What this does on the dynamic layer, it basically tells the program that there's a wall here, a physical wall, and that line of sight will be blocked by this wall. Just like in real life, you can't look through walls unless you got X-ray specs, which hasn't been invented yet. So I'm actually going to use the polygon line because this map is like at an angle. And so I'll click on one spot and then click my endpoint, and now there's a pink line. I can click again and it'll add the next line and so forth. And then when I am ready, I can just click back to the original point. If I need to end the shape before I get back to that point, I can just right click and it'll go ahead and basically create that that wall for me. Actually, that's kind of whoa. It's not. I'm going to add that to the map layer. Sorry, that should have been fixed beforehand. And this is actually not in good taste. For buildings, what you should do, or rather what you can do, rather than just blocking off the outer perimeter of the building, just go ahead and do like the center. That way you still get a lot of the pretty art. And in some of the examples that I show you that were actually done by Roll20, you'll see them do the same thing. So, okay, I have my, gosh dang it, these tokens are in the wrong layer too. So let's go ahead and put them to the token layer. There we go. So I made a couple walls. So let us go ahead and we shall go and do the last step, which is to activate the tokens for dynamic lighting. Now, if you turn on dynamic lighting for the page, but not the token, that player who owns that token is only going to see a black screen, and you don't want that. So double click on the token to get to the functions of the token and go to dynamic lighting and turn on vision. Even if your token does not have night vision, as long as your page is using dynamic lighting, you need to turn on vision. And there's a really simple reason for this. If, for instance, you're inside of a cave and you are playing the human, who doesn't have night vision, he's not going to see anything in that cave, right? But let's say somebody in front of him has a torch. Now, just because he doesn't have night vision, that doesn't mean that he doesn't see anything. He's going to see that torch up ahead. So you still need to give him vision. So once I turn on vision for my token, you can see that there's some shadow on this side. And if I really wanted to show you something, let me go ahead and we'll say that we'll just go ahead and map this wall. Okay. So now Kleegroot over here cannot see past these two walls. The program is saying that there's a wall here, it's blocking your line of sight. So he's actually not going to see this Vulpin Noble over here, this token. He can only see what's inside of the lighted area. If you had this token assigned to a player, let's see. Control L will turn on sight for that token. So if you're the GM, if you want to see what that player sees, click on their token and then type out Control L. And now you have switched your sight to that token. So this is what Kleegroot can see. Everything that's in the light, you can see. Everything that's in the darkness is hidden. Okay, so that's a little bit about dynamic lighting for an outdoor map. Now, the reason why we have this light going all over is because we are in the outdoor area. Actually, let me go ahead and see. So this adds light to the whole page, which is good for a sunny day or well-lit rooms, or GMs don't want to place a bunch of torches. So this is basically like global illumination. If I were to turn that off, this is what it would look like. He would actually not see anything. Why is that? Why is Kleegroot now all of a sudden blind? Because there's no global light. I mean, it's sunny outside. Now it's dark. So what we can do is give him some night vision. And so we can decide how many feet he can see in the dark. And this little glowing orb is what he can now see. So everything that's around here, he can see. So as I go around the map, oh, there's that little rascal. Eat him. Okay, so likewise, if he has a torch, he's emitting a bright light. We could turn that on, and we can decide how much of that light is exposed for the other players. So now, let me go ahead and change some things. I'm going to go ahead and turn on vision for this Vulpine Noble. So as he rounds the corner, he can now see that light that Kleegroot has. So remember my analogy of being the human in the cave? He can still see the torch even though he's in darkness. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So let me show you some examples of how this really works and the work that you need to put into it. So these are all of the maps that I have gotten from Roll20 for free for being a pro member, question mark, I think. So let's go to this one. I've already put in some dynamic lighting for Klee group. And let's see. Let's go to the dynamic lighting layer. And you can see these blue lines are the lines that the makers of the map have put in for the dynamic lighting. So as Klee group is walking around in this world, as he moves, the shadow kind of shifts and moves. That's what he can see in real time. Now there is one setting that you should have if you're doing something like this, and oh gosh, I can never remember where it is. Restrict movement, there we go. So this does not allow the player tokens to move through dynamic lighting walls. So now it's a physical object. So for example, if I'm Klee group, he cannot move past this wall. Now as the GM, I can move him past that wall if I wanted to, because I mean, I'm the GM. So now it treats it like an actual physical wall. Now there is a little bit of a caveat to that. As you saw, as I was trying to get Klee group through that wall, he can actually sort of pass through it and see what's on the other side. So that might be something where you want to double your dynamic lighting walls. So I would probably just draw like another line next to this one. I don't agree with their choice of color. I prefer to use bright colors. That way I know what is on that, like what is a dynamic lighting line. And that way I can actually move it if I need to. But there's also another technique that I need to show you. And for this one, I'll go to this tavern. So for this one, this is an indoor area with some outdoor elements. So for trees, there's some dynamic lighting because you're not going to see through the tree. So you would actually put like some sort of an X over that. And for the normal walls, you would do like one color. And for doors and windows, you would add a different color. Now, let me see if I can pull off one of these. So this is a door right here. And what they've done, they've drawn a line and they kind of angled it a little bit. That way, it's always good practice to do something like that. That way you have like some sort of bit that's not in line with the other colors that you can just pull off. Now, in my opinion, this is a little bit too small. I usually make mine a little bit bigger. That way it's easier to grab onto. But that could also affect what's around the map. So if I actually made this a little bit bigger, then this would actually interfere with the lighting in this room somewhat. So let's go to an indoor area. I think there's some, yeah, here we go. So in this example, everything, this is an indoor cavern. And so what they've done, they have actually drawn the lines for the entire cave, like what the actual walls for the cave. So as a player, you're not going to see through this. This is an exploration piece. So as you move around, you start slowly uncovering more of the map. Or you could just leave them in darkness. I mean, that too. But there is that. And these little glowing orbs, I believe, are not emitting light. Ah, yes, here we go. Emits a light. All players can see this. So they've actually gone ahead and used this object as a little bit of an emitter of the light. And this is really good for like if you have a torch that you drop. This can be a way of actually putting that light for your players. So this is the dynamic lighting layer. And as you see on the regular other layers, you're not going to see that. So you can actually use shapes as your dynamic lighting. Yep. So that is kind of pretty much all there is to know about dynamic lighting. Really think about, one, is your area outdoors? If it's outdoors, then you're going to make sure that you have daylight mode on. If it is indoors, then that's probably going to be something that you want turned off, unless there's so much light inside that it isn't going to affect what the players can see. I use daylight mode like if I just want to know what my players can see, as in line of sight. And putting it indoors, dynamic lighting indoors, is pretty much a good way if you want them to explore like that. Last map that I had pulled up, that kind of seemed like a maze-like area for my players to explore. So as they're walking around, they're uncovering some areas, but it's always going to be in... Oh, you're not supposed to be there. It's always going to be in darkness for the things that they can't see. So like vision and night vision, let's go ahead and put that at 20. All right. Oh boy, did I actually do something wrong? I probably forgot to turn on dynamic lighting. Okay, so there we go. All right, so this is what Kleegor can see, and as I've turned on Explorer mode, so that means that the area that he's already uncovered is not exposed. The only thing though, because I actually didn't turn on that setting either. These are things you gotta think about. Restrict movement, and now... Oh my gosh. Can I like get anything to work? What's going on with that line? Okay. That is kind of weird. It should be working, but it isn't working. I guess I will go ahead and turn on Explore mode and see. Wait, didn't I already have that? I feel like I've had that turned off. Unless I totally did it on the wrong one. Okay. Last time is a charm. Oh, just doesn't want to work. Okay, so sometimes Roll20 is goofy like that. But that is kind of just some things to think about when you're doing dynamic lighting. Make sure if you're outdoors, turn on daylight mode on. If you're indoors, keep it off. Make sure you draw your lines, your walls. That way your players will not be able to see through it. And there we go. That's probably actually why it wasn't working before. Nope. Okay. Well, I'm going to give up on that. And then just make sure that your tokens are activated. Make sure that they have that vision turned on, even if they can't see. That way, if you have another player that has a torch, they can see that. So that's going to do it for this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below. If I've left something out that you would like others to know, go ahead and leave that down there. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series and the content, and share this with anybody that you think would help, because that's what these videos are for. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Yeah, I think that kind of covers it about the maps. So, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.